Legendary Italian studio Milestone, focused on delivering all kinds of racing experiences on 2 and 4 wheels alike, are back with the 4th instalment of their licensed Supercross video games. After years of some average races, the studio delighted us with some of their best games in a long time with Ride 4, Gravel and MotoGP 20 among others, making us all rather hopeful for this franchise's first steps into the new generation of consoles lifecycle. Let's take a look at what they delivered. Par for the course for racing games is getting the hang of the gameplay mechanics through the career mode, as it usually puts the players in increasingly competitive vehicles in events that become more and more complex. After a recommended short tutorial level, that is indeed where the players can begin their journey. So let's get the obvious out of the way. Those who played Monster Energy Supercross 3 already know what to expect, and the various more unique elements of it, like the upgraded physics, the track editor and the open world compound, make a return, albeit with additions that we'll talk about later. It is a rather iterative sequel, but we'll dive into the details for those unfamiliar with the franchise naturally. After choosing from a selection of bikes and teams with initially minor performance differences, it's time to hit the road. Well, the dirt. The events in the game naturally mimic the Supercross formula as much as possible, and as such, 24 dirt bikes start the event side by side in a specific starting location, which then deviates into the lap-based circuit of dirt and sand that riders will have to keep completing for a set amount of minutes, with the end of the timer signalling the start of the final 2 laps. Points are subsequently awarded based on the order at the finish line, with the sum of all events scores declaring a winner for the series. Unlike most racing events, however, most of the performance isn't reliant on precise cornering and perfect accelerations out of turns, but finding the right flow throughout the straights of bumps and jumps of varying size and type, from the so-called whoops that can be blazed through at high speed, all the way up to the double jumps, where calculating the landing spot is key to keep your rhythm necessary to stay competitive. There's various other rules in play, but managing that rhythm and the bouncy suspensions of the dirt bikes is key to victory here. In between career events, players can participate in special sponsor races and, perhaps most importantly, train their skills in a series of challenges, evaluating people's levels in an increasingly difficult series of tasks, of which the player can do a total of 3 attempts before moving on to the next classified race. This forces the player to be effective, as a failed run still counts as an attempt, but the rewards more than make up for it, with every trial awarding up to 3 stars that can then be spent on boosting individual statistics for the player, from stability to speed and so on. It is therefore not only about trying to find contracts for better teams and better bikes. As the player moves up to higher and higher categories of rides, these events come in handy to get the ebb and flow of the game, improving your technique but also the stats associated with the races. Indeed, I had to sweat pretty hard to get a top 5 finish at first, but once I'd managed to apply 10 to 15 upgrades from the various training sessions, I was regularly fighting for top spots and therefore being one of the main candidates for the title. There doesn't seem to be much else going on for this campaign mode, frankly. Don't expect the cinematic experiences of NBA 2K or FIFA's short-lived The Journey mode. But even another recent bike racer by Milestone like MotoGP 20 seems to offer far more depth and variety in terms of customising your team and experience. At least bikes, suits and helmets can still be customised by unlocking and buying, only with in-game money fortunately, new objects, stickers and so on. Customisation plays a big role elsewhere, however. Fortunately, Monster Energy Supercross 4 offers a satisfying variety of difficulty options, riding assistances and physics tweaks, allowing players of just about any skill level to customise their experience to their liking and their capabilities. From the realistic settings, which have the riders micromanage the rotation of the bike, the position of the driver and even the brakes, all the way down to simplified models where it's possible to send it every corner without worrying too much about destabilising the bike. There's even a limited number of rewinds players can use to correct mistakes in an event. Dosing the speed to follow the flow of bumps is imperative, however, as pedal to the metal, all lap doesn't get you beyond last place, even on the lowest difficulty. Trust me, I checked. Naturally, events can also be played in custom races with the addition of online multiplayer, up to 16 of you, featuring customisable routes, providing cutthroat global competition. Albeit the player base does not appear to be particularly big around launch day. Perhaps it could find a second wind by getting added to the Game Pass catalogue, a fate that various milestone races have shared in recent times. Local races against AI do have their competitive aspects too, since leaderboards exist for tracks. There's another important game mode celebrating creativity and customisation, a handy track editor. Don't expect the limitless possibilities of the Trackmania franchise or even the individual item placement and verticality of the recent Dirt 5. Milestone's intention is to provide players the tools to create relatively grounded and plausible tracks using a decent variety of sand and dirt bumps, jumps and corners of all shapes and sizes. What it intentionally lacks in scope, it more than makes up for with a responsive UI, comfortable navigation, with undo buttons and other little quality of life features, and sharing our creations with the community is really easy with the in-game tools. One major flaw I've found in this game is related to consistency, or its lack thereof. Much has to do with the fact that the game suggests what is the most ideal path to go through a series of bumps, but somehow even doing the same sort of precise jumps out of that proposed sink turns out to be surprisingly slow, as if the game intentionally punished the player for searching for alternatives or adapting. And yet AI seems to not have this problem at all, as they easily fly through double jumps with the right pace, even with minimal momentum, baffling me as I accelerate past them on the ground, and then they subsequently fly by me in a rather unrealistic fashion. Similarly, excursions off the beaten path turned out to be a lottery. Trying to be smart and driving just beside the bumps results in the game slowing down your bike to a near crawl, making it a futile exercise. I did find paths, however, where this rule didn't apply, offering decent cutting possibilities that not even the AI seemed to be aware about. The CPU-controlled riders do get their vengeance though, as they usually seem to be immune to this speed loss when leaving the track, thus prepare for AI riders to overtake you mid-bump by cutting just because another computer opponent pushed them off the track. Getting too far from the drivable area resets the bike into the middle of the track with, once again, results varying from frustrating to hilarious. While it tends to place the player more or less in a correct spot, I've had several instances of me and the AI alike being respawned in positions well ahead or surprisingly behind my expectations. In one instance, I even somehow managed to cut a whole lap by respawning to the end of the track instead of the beginning, gaining me about 45 seconds and 20 places in the process, gifting me the easiest of wins on a treacherous dirt path. I can definitely see some of these occurrences getting exploited by competitive players across the globe unless the developers fix them as soon as possible. Visually speaking, Milestone's newest title will not necessarily impress many people. With a series of iterative upgrades over last generation's Monster Energy Supercross 3, the game is pleasant enough to the eyes, but it certainly isn't the same league as racing behemoths like Forza Horizon 4. Fortunately, this is balanced out by a sharp look thanks to the 4K resolution on Series X and the rather solid 60 FPS shared on Series S alike, the other platform I tested the game on. Soundtrack's a mix of hard rock and mainstream metal that manages to transmit the correct attitude for an extreme motorsport game such as this, though I can't say I recall any standout tracks worth mentioning. Colours are vivid, much thanks to a good use of HDR, though this is rarely too noticeable as most events happen in stadiums at night over visually similar tracks made of, well, dirt and sand. It becomes much more obvious in the Compound, which is a fully explorable open world hub full of collectibles alongside time-based and stunt challenges. After the third chapter's world that features a mud-based construction site, Milestone brings us for a camping trip on the side of a mountain this time, as we freely explore forests all the way down to the beach, passing by some castles and wooden constructions in the process. A fun little diversion that rewards with some exclusive gear, but there isn't too much depth in this mode. In short, Monster Energy Supercross 4 is Milestone's fourth attempt to bring the world of licensed Supercross onto our consoles, and this iterative upgrade does not fix what isn't broken, mostly just switching out content and applying minor improvements here and there, a rather frequent sight in days where all development is heavily impacted by COVID-19 restrictions. It does feature a bit more eye candy if you're on Series X or S, but nothing too fancy. It may not be the most spectacular or polished racer ever, But there really aren't many games like this on the market, with the Italian studio once again delivering a solid enough title for bike fans to keep them busy until the next instalment. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to give us a thumbs up, drop us a comment, and hit subscribe so you can be alerted when XboxEra drops some fresh content. And we'll see you next time.